All right, now I think I'm more presentable. All right. So everyone, welcome to a community keeping you politically and emotionally safe. It's the Leading Like a Lady Live. And these are my reactions to everything. Part one. I don't know if I'm going to do this weekly. I'm going to do this maybe like every 2 weeks or something like that. Just to like check in to see how I'm connecting also with YouTubers. Because there's, first of all, great news. There's over 1,000 of you now subscribed to this channel. So that was a major milestone reached this year. I want to thank you guys so much for joining this community and feeling like you're gaining something from here. And I also want to mention that one of the major things that keeps the show going on the road is your support and donations. So not to just ask you right off the bat for money, but this is a not-for-profit digital media company designed for Black women and African women specifically in mind, but to basically support women feeling insecure about their status in life, whether it's financially insecure, emotionally, psychologically insecure, insecure in their career and where they're going next in their leadership development, etc. So I am going to pin, just whenever you feel led to, the link to our charitable website that you can support us through whenever you feel led to. So, right, I'm just going to pin that. All right. So if you feel led, only if you feel led, that's a way that you can support us. All right. But let's focus now on just my reactions to everything. Just a quick rundown of what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to try to make this like just casual, even though I do have notes in front of me because I'm trying not to forget like major things that I want to say about each thing. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about Roshana Landfair. If you don't know that name, you'll know in a second who she is, but she is connected to the R. Kelly RICO case that eventually brought him down and got him imprisoned. And that's going to segue into a conversation I've already started in another video, but we're going to continue here because we're talking about Pam Bondi and her congressional, sorry, appearance that I don't know if you haven't given up on society yet. I don't know if that was like the last straw for you. Then we're going to go into, I know that this is like old news now, but just a little bit about Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime show. Not necessarily like breaking down the bits and pieces of the show, but just talking about like the extended backlash against it, even more so than last year's Kendrick Lamar Super Bowl halftime show. I did do a video, a short, very short video on that that went viral on LinkedIn and on TikTok, I believe. There was backlash, there were bots in the chat, but the backlash now is like, it's showing us that society is crumbling if we don't do something fast, right? So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about the layoffs that are happening that continue to plague Black women, especially, specifically in media, because it's having an impact on the kind of stories that are being told. Hence the story that we're going to begin with anyway, talking about the R. Kelly trial and that why that's even coming up again. And then on a lighter note, on a lighter note, today is Jill Scott Day. Happy Jill Scott Day. I listened to the entire album and I have lots of thoughts, not just about the album, but about how it is a signal about where we're going in terms of the neo soul slash R&B girlies like sphere, right? Because I just see a video that was interesting that was breaking down why Ari Lennox is not where she should be right now or where she has been in the past. And I have thoughts on that too, because I'm a huge, 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 huge Ari Lennox fan. But I'll have to admit that I've kind of dropped off after Shea Butter Baby, not after Shea Butter Baby, that's not true. We'll talk about it more. But I've dropped off in terms of like my loyalty to her that I've had when Shea Butter Baby came off. Like obviously I was on board with her before then, but like lately things have happened that have made me go my separate ways kind of with her content. So that's the breakdown of the conversation that we're going to have today. And of course, in the chat, if you have any reactions to anything talking about, whether you're watching in real time or you're watching the playback, just leave a comment below. I'm going to have some different questions that I am genuinely interested in hearing your feedback on. So again, whenever you're watching this, just drop it in the chat and let me know what your thoughts are. But let's get started. All right. So, as I mentioned, our first conversation is going to be about Roshana Landfair. You do not know her name, or maybe you do if are someone who's deep into the lore of R. Kelly, but you know of her. You know her from the infamous tape. I don't even know what to call it, like the urination tape, which sounds so like vile, but frankly, that's what it was known for. When the allegations of R. Kelly reached this quote unquote peak before what happened recently with Surviving R. Kelly in that documentary, it reached this peak because he was alleged to have had urinated on a girl who was 12, 14 years old. And that girl at the time, she was a girl at the time, now she's a grown woman. But her name is Roshana Landfair, and she has come out with a book. Oh, I forgot to put the name of the book in my notes. Oh, Who's Watching Shorty? That's what it was. She came out with this book and she's going on a whole press tour about it. And it's given me an emotional reaction because I think, a little bit younger than her when this happened. And it's triggering because it's bringing up some thoughts that I have about young Black girls never being safe, even if they're raised in a so-called well-to-do household, right? So here on this channel, I talk about how there's media bias and we need media literacy to unpack that and the way that media is used as a tool to paint certain narratives about Black women and Black girls. And one of the things that is often painted, which is such a tired um, trope with regards to our plight, right? Is that we have to grow up in the hood, we have to be poor and in the ghetto, and we have to be growing up or living in the projects to have all these things happening to us. God forbid that we are in a middle class home as Black girls or even Black women, young women, and people would think that, oh, okay, so you made it, so everything's good, right? I think that, and this is going to be actually a very complicated and nuanced conversation because, yes, on the one hand, I do think that trope is often over our heads and is used as a way to just kind of like summarize the entire existence or experiences of Black women in America specifically. Let's not even get to how it's talked about in Africa, right? They probably don't even think that there's like a middle class in Africa. But like this whole conversation around like if you're a Black woman and you went through trauma, it must have been meant it went through these specific types of steps and these specific types of experiences rather than like no. In general, this is going to be complicated, but like in general, Black women especially, yes, get the feeling, not the feeling, get put into circumstances where we feel so unprotected. What did Malcolm X say? Like the most unprotected woman in America or the most protected person in America is the Black woman, right? So there is that like not racial stereotype, racial bias, as also gender bias that just makes us more at risk, statistically speaking, because the statistics do show that there's a higher correlation between our race, our gender, and the amount of BS that we're put through, right? On the other hand, I'm going to read a quote from one of Rashana's interviews that I feel we need to unpack a little bit more and realize that especially what's going on right now with the Epstein files, reveals a way bigger agenda than just let's destroy the Black woman. And I'm here again always to talk about how, especially media and media bias and lack of media literacy is ruining the lives or reducing the quality of life for Black. Also realizing that there's an even bigger agenda at play, but that Black women unfortunately get the brunt of this chaos that is the ridiculousness of empire and late stage capitalism and patriarchy, right? So I'm going to read this quote. This is again a quote from Roshana Landfair, the young girl at the time in the R. Kelly urination tape. And this is her reaction to how long it took for R. Kelly to receive justice or to be put to justice for this. She says, if it had been a Caucasian girl this happened to, especially by a Black man, I'd have been treated more like a victim. I'd have felt more supported. So essentially what she's saying that if it was a Black man, let's just say R. Kelly, because he's Black, if he had done this same thing to a white woman or a white girl, immediately she said she would have been treated like a victim. And I get what she's saying because that goes to the whole thing going back to slavery and even until today of Black men being predators or seen as predators against the innocent, weak white woman. I get it. There is a history there. Look at Emmett Till, right? Look at there was recently a news story with a white woman in a grocery store or something like that. And the little boy, who was a Black boy's backpack brushed up against her behind, and she thought that he was groping her. So there's examples, multiple examples of how, yes, there's this whole predator aspect of like if it's Black man against white woman, immediately prosecute. And then we see less of that urgency when it comes to Black women. However, we need to start looking at this epidemic from a trickle down versus trickle up perspective. What do I mean by that? Okay, unpopular opinion, hot take, I don't know. You tell me in the comments below. White women were never seen as innocent and they were never protected at the top of the social food chain. Look at the Epstein files. Not even go to the Epstein files. Let's just go back in time. Because literally at the same time that, yes, R. Kelly was running a whole sex trafficking. Oh, I want to make sure I don't say words that trigger YouTube, but it's too late. But yes, R. Kelly was running a whole RICO around the abuse of young girls, certain type of abuse against young girls. And it was pretty elaborate because he had his whole staff in charge of it, making sure like there was cover up and making sure that the girls didn't say anything or that the parents were kept quiet, blah, blah, blah. And Roshana talks about that in her book and in her interviews. But boy, was there an orchestrated effort to cover up the trafficking of white girls when it comes to Epstein Island. Like, we have still yet to unpack the level at which this whole thing has gone down with the most powerful people. Every other day, we're finding out about another person, another titan of industry, another person that was respected in certain circles that would never think that this person would sully themselves in such a way. Every other day we're getting revelations of how this stretches not just within the United States realm of power, but internationally, like with the royal family in England, with people. I think there was just a I don't want to misquote it, but somebody in some country, some either like a major CEO or someone in a high position of leadership in a European country just recently got let go of their position because they were found in the Epstein files, right? So this is like, and this was happening at the same time as the R. Kelly situation, and we had no idea until recent events. We had no idea that this kind of level of trafficking and endangerment of young white women, not even young white women, I want to make sure it's girls because they're not, they weren't young women, they were very, very young. The extent to which this was happening, we had no idea. So this whole notion white, that whiteness protects you from this kind of danger, or that it's only about, in this quote that Roshana, oh, I forgot to time myself to make sure I stay on schedule. But anyway, Roshana was trying to make a case that, race was playing a role in how she was perceived and how she was protected by the justice system in America. But I just have to say, like, there's no consistency. The only consistency is that there's one group of people who are continuously protected and are continuously allowed to get away with much more than you would think is ever possible, and that's white heterosexual men. That's it. Whiteness alone is not enough. And I think that's what the Epstein files reveal. And that's what breaks my heart too about this story coming back up again. Rashana's bringing this back up again because she is again releasing this book talking about how hard it was for her to get work after her name was revealed. And again, we're seeing a pattern too of like not protecting the identity of these victims. She was supposed to be listed as Jane Doe, and I believe that's how most people were reporting it, but somehow her name got out, and especially in Chicago, which is her hometown, and sadly the hometown of R. Kelly, everybody knows that she is the girl in the video. So she talks about how difficult it is to be in relationships. Working at the school that she works at right now, I believe they were saying that they were playing R. Kelly, even though they know her history with that person and that what he's in prison for right now. They're still playing his music in the school where she works. So the level of disrespect and disregard for our emotional and physical well-being is insane. But it stems from more than just because we specifically are Black women. We get the brunt of it, mind you. There's no argument about that. We get the brunt of this whole system being against anyone who is not heterosexual white men. But heterosexual white men just care about them. They just care about making sure that they are good, which includes and is not limited to the abuse and lack of protection for white women. So if we're seeing that that's happening, if we're seeing that, and I mentioned this, and I'm going to actually put this in the chat. If in case you haven't seen this video yet, I've already made a video talking about the Epstein. Oh, I'm not prepared. I thought that I had linked that already. I made a video recently for the podcast, a video and its audio, available through audio. So you can either listen on Apple Podcasts, which by the way, we are rated 5 stars, 5 out of 5. Thank you so much for that. But listen here to the full Epstein podcast episode where I talk about how even a blue-eyed blonde-haired woman who really got the ball rolling finally on getting Epstein imprisoned was still not enough, clearly, as we see now, to break down the whole system. Because if we were to truly reveal the magnitude, this is like not even RICO. This is new world, not new world order, but this is like world order type stuff. This is like someone was calling it eyes wide shut. I'm like, that's still not enough. Like, there's nothing I think in our, except for maybe Illuminati type stuff, like that whole conspiracy around Illuminati. Remember that? It makes those things feel like, okay, like were they bugging, right? Were they onto something? that is that level of like chaos right now with the Epstein situation. So anyway, I wanted to bring up that point in terms of like her being back in the news and how this is just like it's unfortunate that her once again her news is getting swallowed up by what's happening with the Epstein victims, who are majorly, at least from what I've seen so far, white women, even though there's a mix in there, of course. So even at the time when she's coming out and trying to like redeem and take ownership of her story again, it's still being swallowed up by, again, like I said, it's a trickle down thing. It's like there's no way that we as Black women are going to get the justice that we deserve and the protection that we deserve if the powers that be don't even respect their own kind, right? So it was just something that just made me very emotionally triggered and sad to see. Uh, and yeah, I mean, for R. Kelly, it took, I think, over 20 years before he finally saw any kind of, imprisonment. And then for the Epstein folks, who knows? Because this is a segue to our next story. But let's take a quick break. And this time I'm going to actually time myself and make sure that I'm actually speaking on time because we started at 12:45, right? So I went a little bit over for that last segment. Um, but anyway, I am just going to quickly share two things, two personal things as we get ready to transition. Number one, tomorrow's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day if you celebrate. But I know that there are a lot of single women who are either purposely decentering men at this moment in time and are thinking more about their own self-care and their protection of themselves, and or just, happen to just be single and maybe just need comfort, words of encouragement during that time. So you will see a video premiere tomorrow with some self-care tips and affirmations. So look out for that. Make sure you're subscribed and make sure you hit the notification bell so that you get notified about that. And then also in terms of self-care and forgiving yourself and working on your mental health, I wanted to say that I am reading this book by Maisha Cherry that I found out through one of these, I think, NPR podcasts, and it's about forgiveness. And it's really, really helped me feel validated and seen in terms of a lot of the hurt and pain that I was dealing with in terms of relationships, and how that forgiveness is a process that doesn't look a certain way all the time, and it's fine, right? And it really helped me. So I just want to share on the screen. Let me see if I can share it and if it shows. Hopefully it does. And by the way, you can always go to, I'll put this link in the chat as well. But in case you can see on the screen, because I can't look at YouTube while doing this, this is my bookshop.org page where I have recommended reads. And it's right here, the book by Maisha Cherry. So if you're interested in that book or in any other the books here that I think all Black women should read, because it's going to help you just level up in terms of your social and emotional and financial security, go to our link here that I'm going to put in the chat right now for our book recommendations. Let me know if you'd be interested also in a like book club kind of thing. All right. So shop our reading list. All right, we're kind of actually on schedule. It says only 15 minutes so far. So that's good. All right, Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi. I don't even know where to begin with this. Maybe by doing this. So let's put this up on the screen also. Actually, I wanted to see the playback and see if you could see what when I shared my screen. Yes, you could. Okay, great. So that means I'm gonna do this now. Let's share this and let's chat about it, shall we? In one moment. So hopefully you can see on your screen a photo in the foreground, right? That's how you say it. In the front, we see Pam Bondi, the blonde-haired woman in a black blazer, who is there for a congressional hearing about the Epstein files. And in the background, with their hands raised, are victims. And you know, and tell me what you notice. Let's do a pop quiz. Tell me what you notice about the victims in terms of their looks, who they are, etc. But raising their hands are victims of Jeffrey Epstein's, I don't even, again, I don't know what you call it, like global Illuminati, like children abuse ring. Um, they are raising their hands because the senator, who's Palestinian, I don't want to mess up her name. But when she was questioning Pam Bondi, she actually said, I would like to put on record that there are actual victims who are mentioned in the Epstein files who are in attendance today. And if you don't mind, would you stand up so that we can see who you are? And then she asked, raise your hand if you still haven't been reached out to or feel like there's been enough effort made on your behalf by this current Department of Justice that is run by Attorney General Pam Bondi. Everyone raised their hand. So then the senator said, let the record show that everyone is raising their hand and saying that they have not received any kind of support and feel personally victimized by Regina George. But anyway, personally victimized by the Justice Department for, not releasing their names without having redactions, like making it easy for people to dox them, etc. In addition to also not putting any pressure on the people named in the files to be held accountable for their acts. Then lastly, and this is where it gets good, when the senator asked Pam Bondi if she would turn around and apologize directly to the victims for this lackadaisical effort. She did this that you see in the picture. She looked down in her notes. She never turned around. Never turned around. Why am I bringing this up? Well, as I said already, and as I said in the podcast episode that I did say I was going to time myself, and I don't know if I'm over time now. I am not good at this. ADHD is kicking my butt. Anyway, I'll make this quick. I hinted at this in the recent podcast episode for Leading Like a Lady that the podcast and Pizzagate bros and their underlings like Pam Bondi have been bamboozled. Because how do you go on a what nearly 15 years? How long has it been? I mean, obviously with Epstein doing this, what he's done, to women and men, obviously, because you saw there was a man there that was a victim in this whole ridiculous like criminal organization or criminal enterprise. It's been going on since the 90s, at least the late 90s. But if I'm not mistaken, I do have the timeline here. The Pizzagate people have been on this whole like since QAnon, right? So it's let's say it was at least 2016. So that's 10 years. So for 10 years now, let's say at least 10 years or 11 years, Pizzagate bros, certain podcast bros have been, and QAnon bros have been on this whole witch hunt for people who were eating babies, sacrificing babies, doing all kinds of atrocious things to young girls and young boys. through alleged pizza code words and also at actual pizza shops because there was one crazy guy that actually went to go try to fight people at the alleged place where the pizza shop that was a front for this whole orchestrated ring. And they were excited to name people like Hillary Clinton, who is still not yet mentioned in the Epstein files, although her husband is. They were quick to mention George Soros. I forgot to check if he was mentioned there. They were quick to mention those type of people being responsible for this orchestrated ring. And now, as the details trickle down and we realize, like, oh, your guy that was weaponizing your obsessiveness over this, either for the good or for the bad, your obsessiveness over it, because clearly this is really happening. This orchestrated ring is truly real. But because it didn't happen in the specific, it's not happening in the specific narrative that he fed to you. And by your guy, I mean Trump. On top of that, not is it only not happening in the narrative that he fed to you, he is named the most times as being a part of this, as being very hunky dory best friends with the guy who was orchestrating this entire thing. And now you are having a meltdown, either a dissonance, a breakdown of dissonance, a breakdown of, well, I have to just keep the narrative on because he's my boss now and he gave me this job and I just gotta toe the line. Like, you don't have to toe the line, Pam Bondi. You don't actually have to. Like, you could actually say, wait a minute, this is not what I signed up for. As a woman, I tap out. But again, what did I say? When it comes from the top down, it's less about race and it's more about holding up what the powers that be believe is the epitome of authority. White, heterosexual men with billions or trillions of dollars, because I think Elon is on his way to be a trillionaire. So I don't know what's going to happen because I mean, in addition to just like the chaos of the screaming match going back and forth between the senators, and you know what, to be honest with you, I give respect to the people on the opposite end of the aisle. I think it was mostly Democrats that were really, really holding her feet to the fire and like yelling back and giving, her back the same energy. Listen, kudos to them. I think we're far past the time of like trying to be cordial anymore or trying to like put on a show of like this is a real like government or this is a real country. Like let's put all the niceties aside and let's just go at it. So I'm not even mad at this shouting match. I just don't know where mentally we're supposed to go next if white women are supporting the abuse and the neglect. I mean, it's worse than neglect, but the abuse and the horrendous, horrendous crimes against women who and young girls who look exactly like them, either like their children, like their daughters, like them when they were younger, or like them now. Like we are in like an existential crisis right now as Black women, bringing it back to us. Like as Black and African women, we should be very, very afraid that this is the person in charge of justice, so-called justice. And I mentioned even more reasons why, more statistics why in the podcast episode that I linked already in the chat. So like I said, you can listen to the full Epstein episode that I go over and do a deep dive of how this administration and Pam Bondi specifically being in this position that she's in makes like forget that whole like the most unprotected person in the world is the Black woman. The most targeted is going to be now the most targeted woman in America is going to be the Black woman because again, she couldn't even turn around and say sorry to people who looked exactly like her. Tell me what you think. Do you think that there's going to be any level of congressional oversight? Like, do you think that the Republicans, whether they're MAGA Republicans or not, do you think that they're willing to, that this is the last straw for them? That they're willing, even if they're not going to protect us, that they're going to at least put on a show to try to show some kind of level of Like we need to show that we're not a fallen state and do something about this. You can tell me yes or no in the chat, whether you're watching the replay or if you're watching in real time. I would love to know. All right. I really have to make sure I time myself this time, but I just want to make sure that I covered everything. And, I'm looking at the chat also, so feel free to leave any messages, leave any comments as I talk. But all right, let me actually set my timer because I just jump into the next conversation and then I don't like actually hold myself accountable. So we're doing 7 minutes, 7 minutes on Bad Bunny. Again, not breaking down the halftime performance. I didn't even do that with the Kendrick performance. I just said, hey, get ready. And I was right. I was like, get ready for the age of DEI light. And what I meant by that is that now you're going to see people being very slick and sly with how they put in their political messages into their performances. Like this is going to be the new thing. And I was listening to another podcast and they were saying that they were like, since when did was it just what the 2024 election that we've been doing this? And I think, yes, we had like Beyonce wearing the Black Panther, ode to the Black Panther outfit during her performance. And that was at the height of like the 2016 election, if I'm not mistaken. And that was right before she came out with Lemonade too. So she was just in that mindset of like, yeah, like we're about to like make a statement. So maybe it's been since, unfortunately, this world has turned upside down with the election of Donald Trump in his first term. But I think really with Kendrick Lamar's being the most viewed ever, and it still holds that record, by the way. So people are incorrectly reporting that Bad Bunny has the record now, but it's actually still Kendrick Lamar. But anyway, I digress. With his being the most viewed, that's when I said like, okay, get ready for it to be that moving forward. Like I don't know how it doesn't continue in that way moving forward. Now, for the Super Bowl specifically, maybe when Rock Nation, because I think they're on their way out, leaves, it might die down a little bit before somebody comes in. Depending, because they thought that they were doing something when they hired Green Day to do the opening act at the Super Bowl. And I'm like, do you all know who Green Day is? They were a lot more explicit. But I think if they do something like get a chaperone, or maybe not chaperone because she's very, very vocal, but like I don't know, somebody like that who's popular with the young kids, but knows how to like be very artistically creative in terms of like conveying a message. That I think that's now just the way things are going to be with the Super Bowl. Like people are going to try to slip it in slickly. Anyway, let me stay on topic. So he did that, which I expected because, like I said, I saw that trend happening with the Kendrick Lamar thing. But now it's getting serious because there are calls for an FCC review to, prosecute or like hold Bad Bunny accountable for saying things that were, I guess, treasonous in his performance. Whereas, like, okay, he said, God bless America. Where was the treason? I don't know. But anyway. Um, and then the guy admitted to saying that he doesn't know Spanish, so he doesn't really know what he said. Anyway, so there's that side, which is like, obviously, okay, we're in fascist state, so whatever. But then there's the other side that says that, okay, this is also getting very performative. Like, what do we do beyond just using the Super Bowl stage to say, hey, things are trash and we should stop being trash? I actually want to have empathy for the people who say, I mean, I want to, yeah, have empathy for the people who say that art is a powerful medium for doing this. Because, yes, I knew about the fact, obviously, that in the slave trade, a lot of the Caribbean was responsible for cultivating the sugar industry, right? Domino sugar. That company literally comes out of enslavement. So I already knew that. But because of the whole like pressure to do deep dives and say, okay, like what's the real meaning behind the sugar games? What's the real meaning? Because I saw that, because of Bad Bunny's influence, plus the chatter around like, oh, we have to figure out what's the Easter egg or what's the deeper meaning behind this. I was then provoked to say, let me do a little bit more research. And so I feel like, and what I found was profound, and I'm going to share it in a second. But that speaks to the testament of don't take these things for granted. Again, I'm a very well-read person. I know a lot about the transatlantic slave trade through my post-colonial literature background because I studied literature and communications in college. So I know all of these things, but like even more things, even more nuanced things, like when I go back and dig even further and see that there's even more to unpack, I'm always like flabbergasted in a good way. And so this is what I learned. I'm going to show it on the screen as well. So there's a direct tie between the sugar industry plaguing and taking over Puerto Rico and depleting all its resources to the point now that they don't even make sugar anymore, that they have to import it, which is crazy. And there's a direct tie from that to the pharmaceutical industry and how they're now depleting resources there. And also, because we're focused on Black and African women, how they are abusing Afro-Latinas in Puerto Rico. So I want to show this. First, I want to show this piece of artwork because, again, art is powerful and it's bringing light to these situations that we otherwise probably would not even know about. So there's this artist at the University of California, San Francisco. His name is, I hope I'm saying it right, Jacob Reyes. And he is taking inspiration from Japanese art that has also like a political and post-colonial lens and putting it through the Puerto Rican or Afro-Latina or Latin America lens. So I'm just going to put this photo up while I talk about it. So because of so basically the pharmaceutical companies or the pharmaceutical industry studied the way that this one man in colonial Puerto Rico, like when it was, I mean, it's still colonized, but I mean, during like the 1800s and the early 1900s, colonized all the land and labor in Puerto Rico and use that same model for something today that's still plaguing the island. Oh man, I'm supposed to be finished. But anyway, I'm almost done. And basically modern, and I think a lot of people know this, like in general, but the history is even deeper. Modern birth control that we use, like I think it's the progesterone is here actually. They say it. Um, I'm sorry if I'm scrolling really fast. They said it somewhere here. But the way that contraceptives work, the whole knowledge behind it was through experimentation on Afro-Latina women in Puerto Rico. So we all know that yes, like modern OBGYN like medicine has been developed through experimentation with Black women in America. But I had no idea that that was also happening in Puerto Rico and that it actually started in Puerto Rico. I don't think I've ever heard that. I think I've heard just that there were experiments on Black women in like mainland America. But again, due to the analysis of how this one guy was able to take over the entire island and monopolize like the contracts and the way business was run through the sugar industry and so like how lucrative that was. The pharmaceutical industry came in and said, "Oh, we'll do you one better." And we'll also make sure that whatever research we're doing, product research, if you want to call it that, we're doing um, is effective and cheap. We're going to use Afro-Latina women to experiment on. And this is a really, really like gut-wrenching article with some art there that also talks about like just the horrible things that they would say that they were like, actually, if we can just exterminate all these women and all these people anyway, that would be better. So the whole purpose of contraceptives, sorry, for these people who modeled after the sugar industry was to eliminate the indigenous race in Puerto Rico. So again, I wouldn't go down this rabbit hole I wouldn't have gone down this rabbit hole if it weren't for Bad Bunny's performance. So it's not performative. Whether or not Bad Bunny knew that I was gonna go down this deep of a rabbit hole and that I was also gonna bring up this part of like the colonization of the island, whether he even knows that this is part of his history, I don't know. But the fact that he was like, let me just plant the seed in your mind, right? I think that's important. So, yay to like all the diversity and the dancers. I really love that there was like a multi-colored, like multi-toned like crowd in the performance. Um, but I was trying to question why was this important? Like, why is it so important to make sure that we pay attention to the fact that Puerto Ricans come in all different colors and all different hues and has this like rich connection to the transatlantic slave trade and why is that something that we need to like put like glaring lights on? And again, if he didn't say, let me plant that seed in your mind, I would have never gone down this rabbit hole. So I just wanted to say that that was my contribution to the Bad Bunny conversation. And actually want to know from you what's more important, cultural representation in media, like just showing lots of different faces, hues, etc. on the TV, or is it the what is real political organizing if that to you is not real political organizing, right? Which one matters more to you? And then also, who had the best moment in the performance? What was your favorite part of it? Let me know in the comments. Brief break again. This time, I want to make sure that you know that in addition to educating, if political organizing is important to you, in addition to educating and hopefully entertaining you in some shape or form, I want to make sure that you are taken care of, right? I want to make sure the goal that I have by 2030 is to make sure at least 500 women feel economically and professionally and mentally secure, right? And one of the ways I'm doing that is I've been reaching out in the back behind the scenes. I've been reaching out to different organizations, asking them about their mutual aid programs and offers. And I want to know how many of you live in the Bronx, New York, because I do have a resource for you. So if you are someone who lives in the Bronx, New York, are struggling with underemployment or unemployment chronically, so let's say it's been like 6 months to even longer. If you are struggling to find work right now, if you're struggling just to make ends meet and you just need like immediate emergency help, I have a resource for you. And those resources are shared through this free email list, this free email list. So I'm going to put that also in the chat for you. So you can sign up on our Patreon, patreon.com/c/ leading like a lady. If you go there and sign up for the free email list, you will start to get those resources about the mutual aid programs that I mentioned. Um, yeah. And I just want to make sure that like whatever help that you need right now in getting through this like mess of an industry, that you have it at your disposal. All right. So that's my little plug. We're actually doing well on time. I'm surprised. I always like, even though I went over with that Bad Buddy segment and every other segment, we're still doing well. All right, let's keep going though. This is the last serious news before we get to Jill Scott. And then there's gonna be some light banter. Um, this is really personal to me because I am a journalist. I'm a Black journalist. I'm a Black woman journalist. And when I was going to school, even when I was just growing up, because I wrote for school newspapers in high school and in college, these were like the epitome of like where I wanted to be when I grew up. I'm not going to say their names, but if you know, you know, like the big publications that you dream of becoming a staff writer for one day. One I'll say because I still support them, the New Yorker. That's still my dream. So I'm waiting for the right moment and the right story to pitch so that I can finally be published in the New Yorker. But it's like now that dream has been extreme, not even just deflated, but like it feels like it was a lie. Like the whole thing was built on a lie, especially the one publication that has the most movies about it for its pivotal pivotal role in investigative journalism, and that's the Washington Post. The Washington Post is ironically the publication that brought down one of the most notorious presidents in the history of the United States. And now it is kowtowing to one of the most dangerous in its history. It did that by first refusing to make any kind of endorsement of any political candidate, the first time ever in its history to do that. And not because the editors didn't have a candidate in mind that they wanted to endorse, but clearly because they did not want to say something to anger a certain particular candidate. Then they fired one of the only Black female columnists for their international desk. I mean, now their international desk, I think, is pretty much obliterated. I think they closed down either all or a lot of their foreign bureaus. But I think it's Karen Atia fired her because she said something honestly about, was it Palestine? I think so. Um, I don't want to miss. I'm also not timing myself, which is bad. But anyway, either way, it wasn't a good look because they falsely accused her of saying something that she did not say and fired her for a cause, which was incorrect. And I think she still is like actively pursuing a case against them. And now they've let go of almost their entire, not almost, they've let go of all their sports desk, their foreign bureaus, again, like I said, and their book reviews. Why is this significant? Because it might seem like, okay, book reviews, do we really need that, right? Sports, maybe we don't need that. But is it a coincidence that these are the desks that employ the most Black journalists at the Washington Post? I don't think so. I don't think so. And then the Foreign Bureau, which hires the most African and people of the African diaspora journalists. So I just wanted to call out some of the names of the journalists that have lost their jobs due to um, this poor leadership. Now that a certain billionaire has taken over this publication. So Jason Murray, who was a sports editor, he was the first Black journalist to lead the sports department. So historic person, employee there, got fired. Tony Reed, who was a veteran editor at the sports editing desk. Keith McMillan, who worked across college sports. One of the most famous alumni is Michael Wilbon. There's Kevin Blackistone, who's also on ESPN. Jerry Brewer, and the only woman columnist right now, Candace Buckner. So she was covering the NBA, and now there is no Black woman there for sports, or I don't think there's any Black women left, if any, at the Post right now. So there's that. And I just want to also really plug and make sure that I have to say this for people like me who worked as a freelancer. I unfortunately never got a full-time staff role on a paper, but I've been working as a freelancer at least since 2017 for different publications. It's even worse for us because we have no protections. We're considered independent contractors. And so it's easy to just be like, no, we don't have anything for you. And you could be pitching the most um, thought out, most relevant, most urgent story that needs to be reported on right now. And people and editors are saying no, right? So what do? You pivot, right? And so I am pivoting right now to Leading Like a Lady, not-for-profit digital media newsroom. And I ask you again to look at the pinned if you feel led to by all this conversation that we're having. If you see something in me that is worth investing in, I ask you to drop your donation through that link, the pinned link in the chat, which will be pinned also in the replay. And yeah, us Black journalists, especially us Black female journalists, need your financial support. We do, we really, really do. Whether it's $1, it doesn't matter. It helps. It goes a long way because one of the visions that I have for this, like I said, by 2030, making sure 500 Black and African women feel professionally, financially, and emotionally secure. I would like to hire more writers. I did do contributing writers a lot last year or the year before that. And that went really well. So if you guys want me to continue to even hire you, if you are someone who's an aspiring journalist or writer and want to write for a platform, check out our website and see the kind of work that we do. But your donations help us, employ more Black and African women to tell their stories. And then I'm just curious, I'm really, really curious about this. Do you follow newspapers or newsrooms specifically because of the race of the person who's reporting it? I actually want to know if that makes a difference to you. Like, do you think in your mind, like, I want to hear this story from a Black person's perspective? Is it important to you to have Black journalists covering the kind of stories and news that you care about? Tell me in the chat below. All right. All right. Oh gosh, let's see how we're doing on time. I feel like we're doing fine. How long has this live been on? I don't know. It's not telling me how long I've been on. Oh no, it's actually an hour now. Okay, we gotta go through Jill Scott real quick. Even though I had like a lot to say about her, but I was not planning to be on this long. Happy Jill Scott Day. Happy Jill Scott Day. Oh my gosh. So this is like, there's been conversations around whether or not accolades mean anything. And if I'm not mistaken, Jill Scott has a Grammy. Let me just quickly look that up while I'm talking. But there's this whole debate around like, okay, does it matter how, like, does the number of sales you have as an artist, as a musician, matter more than, like, does that dictate whether it's quality, right? I just wanted to just double check that she has a Grammy. Oh, she has 3 Grammys. Oh, I love that for her. Okay, that's great. But would that have mattered if she didn't to the quality of this project? Absolutely not. I don't care what anybody on the Grammy voting board says about this album. Like this album is a rejuvenation to me. It's bringing back, and I don't know why it's not what it would take to have the same kind of impact, but it's giving me Miseducation of Lauryn Hill vibes. To be honest with you, I do feel like it's on that level in terms of like intentionality and what it's trying to push in terms of positive messaging for young girls and young and women, especially Black women and Black girls. It's definitely moving in that direction if it's not already in that direction. And like she's doing so many things. Like so with the lyrics being intentional about what message she's trying to construe. Like she wrote the lyrics more as like in the cadence of spoken word poetry rather than like straight like hook verse bridge structure mixed in with like the musical arrangements and production and then also what she's doing with her voice is a lot of like sorry, I'm itching so much. I don't know if I'm having an allergic reaction. And I'm just looking at myself and Anyway, she's using a lot of like microtonality in it, a lot of experimentation with like the instrumental arrangements and things like that. And then she's bringing in some modern sounds with Jid appearing on the album Absol. I was so happy to hear Tierra Whack on the album. Oh my goodness. I was obsessed with Tierra Whack's last album, like played it over and over and over again on my walks in the morning. So I was so happy to hear her. So yeah, she's being I called it Sade, so the singer Sade saging with house music in the background. That's how I would describe the album. Sade saging with house music in the background. It's that kind of level of like uh evolutionary like experimentation with her music. And it's all like again, it's informed in terms of having a simple but provocative message to send to young Black girls and Black women of all ages. And I don't even think just my age, because I'm like, what, I'm now in middle age, which is crazy, but like also like older women too, like giving a homage to ancestors and all that kind of stuff, or not even ancestors, elders, I should say. My favorite song was Pressure. I think it was the most quintessential example of what this album was trying to achieve. And it summarizes my mindset right now about like when she says I'm going overtime. When she says I didn't fit the aesthetic, like the way that she says it is like it's not like okay, I'm just stating a fact, like I didn't fit the aesthetic. It's like I have an attitude about it. Like, why are you trying to put me into this? Like, I have to look this way in order to be recognized and respected as a woman, as a lady. And that's my mindset right now about a lot of things, not just like in terms of looks. I've been really on this, like, I'm not trying to do makeup anymore. Like, it's just like, what's the point? And just being okay with my natural, like, face. And then just also, like, in general, like, the BBL conversations, like, the move now from away from like doing work on yourself and or the pressures to do it to again fit a certain aesthetic and fit in with a certain kind of male crew, if you get my drift. And again, decentering men, decentering their gaze. That's like the mindset that I'm in right now. So that's why it had the most impact on me as of right now. Tell me, should I do a blueprint series video on this? And in general, tell me if you want more videos like the Blueprint series. So, full transparency, the biggest video on this channel right now is the video that launched the Blueprint series, which is my Solange video where I'm breaking down when I get home. It is still to this day going crazy. Like you guys are still watching it. Every time someone new comes to my channel, it's the first video they watch. But I did this really, I thought, humbly speaking, this really great breakdown of Rihanna's 10-year anniversary of Anti, and it was like crickets. So tell me, is the Blueprint series something that you still care about? And would you want me to do it for this album? All right, let me know in the comments below. And then also, which track are you listening to most on Jill Scott's album and why? And what is it, how is it speaking to you right now in terms of like where you are in life, how you're feeling emotionally, and about what's going on in the world right now? It's definitely something, a soothing balm that I need right now. Again, power of art, right? It's important. Joy is revolutionary. We have to fight politically, we have to fight strategically, but we also have to have joy and rest to be revolutionary. So I was gonna go also into like Ari Lennox and Thames and also, but I do not have time. I went on and on and on about everything else, but the Jill Scott album was amazing. And I just think that she is what I hope that Ari Lennox gets back to. Because with Shea Butter Baby, I think that was the same thing. I heard it at a time in my life where I needed those messaging. New apartment, new apartment. That song literally was like a champion cry, I don't know, a war cry for me at the time in my life in terms of independence and freedom. So I'll just say that about Ari Lennox. Thames, I feel like is kind of resting on her. laurels also. Like I want her to try harder. She's trying harder in the production and like the instrumentals and stuff like that, but I want her to try better in her vocal delivery and in the lyrics. I know she can do it because she's Thames. Olivia Dean is before this Jill Scott album was giving me life. But Jill Scott has it more powerfully. So those are my 2 cents quickly on those people. All right, this was the live, y'all. This is the community keeping you politically and emotionally safe. And these were my reactions to everything, part one. Let's see if we do it again at another time. Last plug again to sign up for the newsletter. Again, I have resources for you, not just you get free daily emails about any remote job and freelance job opportunities available, because that's specifically what I focus on, freelancing and remote jobs. So you can work it from anywhere. So sign up for the newsletter if you want that. Also, again, like I said, if you live in the Bronx and you're looking for a mutual aid, if you're looking for mutual aid support, I have a resource for you there too. If this stream mattered, please share it widely. I know it was chaotic because I started out chaotically and I was figuring it out, but hopefully we'll get into the rhythm eventually. But share this page. I'm losing my voice. Share this page, share this video. Specifically share any episodes of the Leading Like a Lady podcast, 5-star rated on Apple Podcasts right now. Share any episodes that you feel speak to or educate you on like how to be play an active role in being revolutionary right now. Yes, there's going to be time for rest, and there's also going to be time for using art to educate and push media literacy. And it's going to be a time for like really, really direct and serious political action, which we'll talk about maybe eventually at some point if YouTube doesn't shadow ban me for talking about it. I am also doing a Media Literacy Black History Month series on the YouTube Shorts for this page. So, and that's really been going well, like lots and lots of views. So check that out to learn about how you can, it gives actual like practical tips on how you can use media literacy in your community right now as a way to be revolutionary amidst all this chaos that's going on. Um, and Again, don't forget to donate if this meant something to you. And if you want to keep this show on the road, if you want to keep this show going, it's a let me clear my throat. It's a tax deductible gift. We are a 501(c)(3) registered digital media company. So every gift that you give is tax deductible. All right. I don't have a clever sign off. So I'm just going to end the conversation here. But again, let me know in the chat all your thoughts about the topics that we went over today. And I will hopefully see you again in this community at another date.